What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the boundlessly boisterous Dr. Disaster, and let's check in on Ubisoft, shall we? The company's publicly traded value remains in the gutter. Look at that right there. Late last month, they fell off a freaking cliff, so it's pretty safe to say that Ubisoft is in desperate need of a big win.
It's over. We are screwed.
Well, whenever this sort of thing happens to a big company in the gaming industry like Ubisoft, you can be just about guaranteed that the game journalists are going to find a way to swoop in and push a story to save the Ubisofts of the world from negative attention, which is why we are seeing this story here floating around, where they're trying desperately to convince us that actually Assassin's Creed Shadows is a massive success, because when Ubisoft asks for help, the game journalists have only one thing to say.
Yes, master.
Only a journalist, whose job ostensibly is to provide the public with information about the happenings of the world, but only a journalist could take what is a profound disappointment, remove all context, and, in a vacuum, point at that disappointment and say, actually, this is what success looks like. They pretend that they can't see the full context.
I don't believe you. It's another trick.
They're bragging about how Assassin's Creed was the best-selling game for the past 3 weeks without telling you there's been no competition. They're bragging about how the game has been the second bestseller of the year without giving you the actual numbers, without talking about what the game cost to make, or what it was actually competing against. As I've said all along, when it comes to Ubisoft, what they're trying to do is pull in people with low standards and low information. They want to dupe people using FOMO and the power of their brand name to get you to buy their crap games. In other words, they're leaning on the power of cultural auto intake.
Oh, this smells like shit.
It is shit.
Oh good, then it's not just me. It's a bit nutty.
Alright, me hearties, let's dig into these claims that the games journalists have been running with for the past day or so about Assassin's Creed Shadows, because we have some context to add. It's sad that these idiots in journalism have abdicated their responsibility so fully, they've transformed from speaking truth to power to speaking power to truth, as the mouthpieces of the big corporate machines who tell consumers that we're bad people for not buying into corporate narratives. In just a second, we're going to read what these dipshits are saying about Assassin's Creed, but before we do, I want you to keep in mind the movie Snow White, which everybody knows was absolutely a bomb at the box office. I actually used this example yesterday. I talked about Snow White when talking about Doctor Who, but it's a really good example, so we're going to use it again. Now, what if I said to you guys that actually Snow White, Rachel Zegler's Snow White, is a big success because it was the highest grossing movie at the box office for the first few weeks of its release? I can imagine a lot of you would ask, well, what was the movie's competition? And that's just the thing. It had no competition. And the moment that Minecraft hit theaters, Snow White got blown out of the water. But then, what if I said Snow White is a success because it is the third highest grossing movie so far this year? I can imagine a lot of you would reply by saying, we're only 3.5 months in to what has been a very down year at the box office. And then you'd say, why don't we just look at the ticket sales for Snow White and compare that to what the movie cost to make? And those, of course, are precisely the correct responses to claims like that, and that is exactly what these buffoons in the media are trying to claim with Assassin's Creed Shadows. They are removing context and then throwing out claims that sound impressive. So, with that in mind, let's look now at what Screen Rant has written here. The incredibly successful launch of Assassin's Creed Shadows has continued well past its release date, with Ubisoft's latest remaining on top of the US sales chart for the third straight week. For 2025, Shadows now only trails the year's biggest hit, Monster Hunter Wilds, which has been crushing sales records for Capcom since its release, according to Matt Piscatella via Blue Sky, which tells you everything you need to know about that guy. But he's an industry analyst at Circana, and he said Assassin's Creed Shadows has ranked number 1 in dollar sales for each of the 3 weeks it has been available through April 5th, where available data ends. This notable run places Shadows as 2025's second highest selling game behind Monster Hunter Wilds, which released nearly a month prior. Alright, so now we can see what they've said. Let's add some context. There have only been 3 really big selling games so far this year. Obviously, Monster Hunter Wilds was the juggernaut, which blows everything else away to the point that looking down at all the others to see how they're doing is like trying to spot an ant from an airplane. We haven't gotten any updates on Monster Hunter in a while, but I'm willing to bet it will be at well over 10 million units sold so far. So, the fight for biggest game of 2025 is just a fight for second place until something like GTA 6 comes out. But anyhow, the only other really big releases so far this year have been Assassin's Creed and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. A few other games like Split Fiction have made some splashes and sold over 1 million copies, and that's nothing to sneeze at, but they aren't playing with the big boys yet. So, now we need more context, because if I'm supposed to believe that Shadows has been a massive selling force, then I want numbers. The last update we got from Ubisoft was the announcement on their X profile that they had reached 3 million players. Not sales, mind you, but players, which we've talked about before, but this bears repeating. That figure includes people who played on a subscription service like Ubisoft Plus, or it could include people who buy the disc and share it with friends, or people who buy it on Steam, play for an hour or so, and then get a refund. It's noteworthy that we haven't heard a new update on this in 2 weeks though. I guess Assassin's Creed hasn't hit 4 million players yet. But anyhow, last we knew, Ubisoft made the claim that Steam players represented roughly 26% of their sales. Now, if you look at VG Analytics, they are an analytics firm who track how games do on Steam. They're usually the most accurate of these companies that do this, and according to them, Shadows has sold around 542,000 copies on Steam. Now, if you do the math, 542,000 is roughly 26% of 2,085,000. This means that Shadows is likely a bit over 2 million units sold at the time of this recording. So yeah, all this information tracks, considering that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 also announced that they went over 2 million units. These journalists are claiming that Shadows is the second highest seller so far this year, and I'll buy that. I could see them surpassing Kingdom Come, but here's the deal. They are still tracking below what I predicted this game would sell. You may remember that my prediction was the game would do somewhere between 3 and 4 million units in the game's first month, and that is a significant failure when you factor in the cost of the game. The estimated budget for Shadows was comparable to Star Wars Outlaws, putting it somewhere around $250 and $300 million. The marketing budget was clearly massive as well, a very conservative estimate, considering all the commercials and everything that we saw for this game, but a very conservative estimate would put that budget for marketing at somewhere around $100 million. So, best case scenario, they spent $350 million on this game. Now, for every copy sold, the platform which sold it, whether that be Steam or the PlayStation Store or a retail store or whatever, they get a roughly 25% cut of the game's sale price. The average sale price of Shadows will be $70, meaning that Ubisoft takes home roughly $52.50 for every copy sold. This means that 1 million copies sold nets them about $52 million. Our previous estimate for copies sold was a little over 2 million copies. If we're generous and say that actually they've sold 2.5 million, that suggests that Ubisoft has brought in about $130 million on a total spend of $350 million or more. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had $350 million bucks, and if someone asked me to trade that money for $130 million, I wouldn't do it. The sales figures for Shadows are only going to slow down from here, especially as actual competition releases. Doom: The Dark Ages, for example, comes out in a month. Basically what I'm saying though is that these journalists are running with these headlines here, trying to spread their narrative, but they are willingly avoiding conversations which include context. Shadows needs at least 7 million units sold at full price to break even on a budget like theirs. If they hadn't played politics and added their progressive shitlib revisionist history to Assassin's Creed, then they might have hit the numbers that Ubisoft was banking on. They were counting on Monster Hunter numbers, and considering the pedigree of Assassin's Creed and how excited people would have been to play in feudal Japan if they had just played it straight, then they might have gotten those numbers. But somehow, this is a success actually, guys. In any case though, I'm gonna leave it there. Drop your mockery of Ubisoft and their Praetorian Guard game journalists into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching me, Hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.